My diet is protein rich and nutritious. I take all the supplements. I'm sleeping 7 to 8 hours every night, getting enough exercise. I'm very productive even in my work, and even my lab tests come out perfect. So, why am I tired? Every single day, I'm just exhausted inside.
But I don't do much physically. Still, I'm tired all day. I don't feel like leaving this chair.
If this is you, then you're so not alone in this pandemic. Fatigue is one of the most searched for terms on the internet today by Gen Zs and alphas and fit people, sedentary and physically active professionals, even child-free adults, and even by people who are doing everything right. And yes, most lab reports done at early and mid stages of chronic long-term fatigue will usually come out normal because standard lab tests are designed to detect physical damage, not disrupted biological patterns and rhythms. That's when systems inside the body, that's like the nervous system, gut, hormones, immune system, metabolism, mitochondrial health, all this kind of stop talking to each other properly. So by the time your lab tests actually show damage, your body has already been silently suffering for years together, years of invisible exhaustion. But here's the good news. What you're aware of, you can consciously control and cure. And what I'm going to say for the next few minutes will make you really rethink and become so aware of the innumerable invisible drains that happens in a day. And this is really going to surprise and shock you. And I will also cover some really natural but very powerful science-backed things that you can do and consume to completely regain 100% of your energy back. Hi and welcome to Curiosity with me, Daisy. Fatigue is nothing but your brain saying, slow down or I'll force you to. To understand why it does this, we need to look at what the human brain and nervous system actually evolved to handle. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors faced stress that was short, real danger, not imagined, and both physical and mental stress. That's hunt, fight, run, survive, recover. All stress ended when the danger ended. Their brains worked intensely, but not constantly. Now, let's have a look at the ordinary day of an ordinary person today. Let's call him Mr. Now. Mr. Now wakes up every morning and immediately checks his phone and switching between WhatsApp and email, Instagram, news and work apps and additional background noise of some TV or a podcast of some valuable information. Simultaneously, another part of his brain is kind of processing what to wear and how to reply to an important client, whether to exercise or not. And by this time, his brain has already made at least 50 attention shifts and processed way more information and made more decisions before breakfast than our ancestors processed in weeks together. Every attention shift costs glucose and neurotransmitters. Every decision made uses the prefrontal cortex, one of the most energy-hungry parts of the brain. Then he needs to reach office on time, rushing at home and traffic, tight schedules at work and meetings, traveling like different time zones for work. He's hustling and multitasking because there are targets and deadlines to meet. So he's pushing harder at office, but also at the gym because the optics of looking good is also as important as being productive at work. Right? So the norm is like this high speed, high intensity, perfection-centric culture, which literally has no respect for recovery or parasympathetic time. So cortisol stays continuously elevated with no downtime. It's burnout disguised as discipline. The other extreme of the speed culture is a sedentary culture where bodies that are actually designed to move are sitting 8 to 12 hours and sometimes even more in a day and indoors. So low movement is equal to low circulation is equal to low oxygen is equal to low energy, ending up being a physical mess. Okay, so when Mr. Now finally reaches office, he is constantly emotionally regulating as well, staying polite when actually annoyed, smiling when tired, small talk when he's depleted, managing other people's inefficiencies, hiding professional stress from family and co-workers, and also the FOMO of missing out on like important career opportunities or social events. Every emotion suppressed requires active neural control. Unexpressed emotions is equal to stored stress. Emotional regulation is actually one of the biggest invisible mental drains of today. And while Mr. Now works, there's always something at the back of his mind, like financial pressure, or health worries, or family responsibilities, or career uncertainty. This is called background anxiety. This system stays subconsciously active, constantly scanning for risk and keeping cortisol slightly elevated even when nothing is wrong. Because it never fully switches off, the body remains in this low-grade fight or flight, which quietly drains energy. And while Mr. Now has so much on his mind during the day, where's the time to focus on a nutritious meal? Convenience-based modern diets that are calorie-rich but nutrient-poor become his norm. So his body actually has the fuel but not the minerals needed to generate actual energy. And stimulants like coffee kind of creates short-term energy but long-term deeper crashes. Coffee just conceals your body's call for health. There's another video of mine that talks about coffee in great detail and how it's different for different people. I seriously urge you to watch that if you're a coffee addict. Meanwhile, Mr. Now, let's not forget, he has social responsibilities or etiquettes of being constantly reachable, replying on time, maintaining online presence. So there is this inevitable social comparison on social media. The brain interprets social vigilance as work. This is called social fatigue. And this happens even with the people whom you love at home, like fulfilling their relationship needs or home responsibilities or promises made or being morally available for family or community members. So once he's dealt with everything, Mr. Now just wants to take a quiet walk to wash the day off from his system. But we now live in a world which is a sensory overload. Yes, whether you like it or not, the world is a brighter and louder place than before. Bright screens and traffic noise, crowded spaces, harsh lighting, artificial smells, ambulances, fire engines, or just another event. His nervous system never fully powers down. And then he says, okay, let's just have some relaxing, fun scroll time before bed. He's just consuming content without really processing it or watching TV or a podcast while he's eating, whilst he's already thinking about the next day and his meetings and work, etc. So there is learning without integration of that learning in the mind. So that's cognitive overload. And this happens all day long. Too much information and no digestion of that info, leading again to mental fatigue. And all that blue light exposure in the evening or at night, like phones and laptops, TVs, bright LEDs, delays melatonin. That's the sleep hormone release, confusing his brain further into thinking, oh, okay, maybe it's still daytime, which disrupts his circadian rhythm, delays the sleep, and makes sleep lighter and fragmented for Mr. Now. So even after 7 to 8 hours of sleep, he still wakes up feeling tired, headache, or foggy. His energy is not completely restored, and he continues the same day again and again and again. So, did you notice the basic difference between stress then and now? Cavemen ran from danger. We sit with it constantly. So being stressed is really not the problem. We have, of course, evolved to handle stress. The problem is we didn't evolve to be stressed all day long, all week long, all month long, all year long. We evolved to recover after short bursts of stress. So what's the result? Their stress burned energy and our stress burns out systems, digestive system, hormonal system, brain chemistry, metabolism, immune system, nervous system. All these systems rely on rhythm and recovery. But know the difference between stimulation and stress in work. When you're stimulated, you're in the moment, you're in the flow state, almost forgetting yourself. Your mind is challenged but not threatened. You finish tired but fulfilled. Stress is when your mind is jumping 10 steps ahead. You're thinking about outcomes and judgments and consequences. You're driven by fear, urgency, or pressure. You're doing the task, but mentally trying to escape it at the same time. You're not present in the moment. Simply said, flow happens when challenge meets meaning. Stress happens when challenge meets fear. One nourishes your nervous system and the other slowly drains it. A simple self-check is to ask yourself, if you remove the deadlines and rewards and validation, would you still enjoy the process? If yes, that's stimulation. If no, then that's stress. So if you're fatigued, consider that like a really precious sign to course correct. And there are some really super powerful science-backed solutions for everything, which I will cover in a bit.
But I don't have a physically or mentally stressful job, but I still feel tired.
This is a very important question because a lot of our past patterns of acting and thinking and behaving are in our subconscious mind that is spread throughout our body. Our subconscious lives in our nervous system and gut and hormonal system, immune system and muscular system. It's our operating system and its main job is to keep us alive using the least amount of energy possible, which is why subconscious activities are on automate, like driving a car. You don't consciously think about them while doing them. So like when you clench your jaw without noticing or breathe shallowly while working, or your shoulders kind of stay very tense even when you're relaxing, or you feel very tired even on the easy days, it's because your past patterns are operating on autopilot below awareness. And this doesn't feel dramatic. It rather feels very spontaneous. This is why sometimes no amount of positive self-talk can fix fatigue, because thinking, thoughts is a language of the conscious mind, and feeling, emotions is the language of the body. That's the subconscious mind. So you need to feel in your body completely safe and secure to downshift your nervous system. Positive self-talk is like telling the smoke alarm to calm down without turning off the actual fire. Once you truly understand this, when this fact truly descends from your head to your heart, you will just stop fidgeting with biology and shift focus to these powerful mental habits and mind shifts, which I will address in a while, and these will impact your biology like no pill or quick fix can.
But I have adrenal fatigue.
I feel brain fog at times.
I don't have thyroid, but I have thyroid-like symptoms.
Are all kinds of fatigue the same?
Fatigue isn't just one thing. It shows up in different systems of the body and is different for different people. The first thing could be like mental fatigue, which can show up as brain fog or sometimes ADHD-like symptoms in adults, or like a low mood feeling that doesn't really feel emotional, or loss of creativity or drive or forgetfulness, poor focus, anger, irritation, all of these. A second is a nervous system fatigue, where you feel really wired, but you're tired, or anxious most of the times, or panic attacks kind of things without any triggers, poor sleep. Then you have the hormonal system fatigue, which can show up as thyroid-like symptoms, even with normal tests, and PMS or irregular periods, low libido. And then you'll have this morning exhaustion, but evening energy, that kind of a thing. Conception becomes a problem. Sperm counts kind of go down. Ovulation cycles also change from excessive stress. Then you have the cellular or the mitochondrial fatigue, which happens when these tiny little power plants inside your cells, they stop producing energy efficiently. So this means your body may actually have the fuel and sleep and nutrition and everything, yet it'll still feel deeply exhausted. So you might face like exercise intolerance, which is becoming quite common now, long COVID-like tiredness, recovering slower than everybody else, and this chronic pain syndromes. Then you have the digestive fatigue, which might come across as poor absorption or bloating or food intolerance, IBS kind of symptoms, which is irritable bowel syndromes, and then acid reflux or food sensitivities, persistent inflammation that just doesn't make any sense. And then you have the very common adrenal fatigue. What's often called the adrenal fatigue usually isn't damaged adrenal glands, it's the brain's stress system kind of being stuck in danger mode. So the hypothalamus, pituitary, and the adrenal glands kind of release stress hormones at the wrong times and at the wrong patterns. It's like this chronic miscommunication in the brain and the adrenal loop, and this HPA, that's a hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis, can be balanced back to health with a very potent substance, and I'm going to come to that in just a while. All these aren't separate problems. They're different expressions of the same underlying fatigue. Okay, let's see some powerful, actionable methods that are applicable in a very busy work life that can restore all your energy. Supplements and medication can only go so far with this kind of fatigue. The real answer is in truly winding down. That doesn't mean you need to work any less or kind of live like a monk. The solution needs to be addressed on all the three levels. There's the psychological, the emotional, and the physical level. The first one is a psychological level, and I actually call it the nervous system hygiene. The first one is a mental fast on rising. As soon as you wake up in the morning, for the first 30 to 60 minutes, cortisol is naturally high to help you get alert. So instead of adding any digital input that amplifies stress at this time, do a fast, like a mental fast. No phone, no news, no decisions that aren't necessary. Just hold a plain, blank, calm mind upon rising. Drink water, natural sunlight exposure, or shower, walk, stretch, or just family time with loved ones, where there is zero stress, zero thinking, or zero decision making. Purely a calming or pleasurable time alone or with loved ones. If you are like the meditation kind of a person, that would ideally be the absolute best, most powerful practice upon rising. The second is to reduce micro decisions throughout the day. This saves so much massive energy. Automate, batch, rotate, and recycle all micro decisions, from meals to workout charts to Amazon stuff to order, any of these tiny errands or every other thing that can be handled with routine and rotation and fixed certainty. Just this one simple act can free up your prefrontal cortex for more important decisions of the day. And just remember, your prefrontal cortex is the CEO of your brain. You never brain fog any CEO with micro tasks. Here are the documents that have a list of apps that automate mundane chores for both global and Indian audience. You can just scan the QR codes and you can access them. The next thing is consciously evaluate every interaction or conversation, whether it's digital or real. Trickle down your interactions to the really important important ones and redirect them to be shorter, honest, and more value adding rather than things that you are not really relevant to you. Always ask yourself, is this a true connection or am I just complying to someone or something? Also, redefine what availability means to you. Being reachable is not equal to being responsible. Constant access creates this chronic vigilance because your mind keeps going back and forth. So you don't really need fewer relationships. That's not the answer. You need less constant social alertness. Remember, a true connection always energizes you, but an obligation will always drain you of your energy. Consciously stop feeding urgency or hyper-reactiveness or overthinking. Identify yourself as a calm and centered person in the face of uncertainty. Not everything is a fire. Not every email is a threat. Not every delay is a failure. Not every little mishap is a bad thing. They can be good news in disguise. The next one is practice psychological detachment at work. Consciously practice some quiet time between meetings or chores. Have a noise, chaos, or work fast one evening a week, maybe a productivity or a hustle or a scroll fast. Creatively find ways to interrupt that hyper productivity and stress patterns and replace them with pleasure or zero productivity patterns and sense the difference. Not just in your mind, but your body. If you sense like this feeling of guilt or a FOMO, then that indicates a clear addiction and you probably need the fast more than anyone else. The next is the most important. Stop energy leakage at the emotional level. Releasing energy trapped in suppressed emotions like guilt, anger, grief, resentment, jealousy, etc. is not optional. It's biological. Your body burns more energy suppressing these emotions than actually feeling them. Most times, if you deeply observe, we try to avoid feeling these emotions. We don't want to actually face the discomfort of feeling them. But here is the catch. Emotions that are felt fully with your conscious awareness often resolve in 90 seconds. But emotions that are suppressed or numbed or avoided because you don't want to experience the discomfort of feeling them inside yourself can stay within you for years together. But why 90 seconds precisely? 90 seconds is the initial neurochemical surge of emotion. So what extends suffering isn't really the emotion itself. It's the resistance or the avoidance of it. Or if you consciously choose to stay in that emotional loop by overthinking that content of that emotion. This is based on Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor's book called Mind Stroke of Insight. Dr. Jill is a PhD in neuroanatomy and there's also a TED talk on this if you'd like to kind of listen to it. I personally have tried this and it works like how. I highly recommend this book. I've also always read and followed radical spiritual teachers like Sadhguru and Sister Shivani and Michael Singer. Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment, are absolute must-read. All these teachers address healthy, rational ways to deal with deep-seated emotions and the subconscious mind. And the next one is to stop energy leakage at the physical level. Here, I'm going to address some very effective practices and consumables. But the first most important thing to address is sleep and also the misconceptions around sleep. It's essential to clock your sleep as per the circadian rhythm. The word circadian itself literally comes from the sun's cycle.
But if I sleep early and wake up early, I feel tired the entire day.
Yes, because the sleep early, wake up early cycle is not applicable for everyone. As I say in literally every one of my videos, no two people are alike. So your circadian rhythm is your body's internal 24-hour clock, which is your chronotype. Your chronotype is your body's natural timing preference. Some people wake up, energized at 5 o'clock and some at 7 a.m., some at 10 a.m. Some are even flexible. Each one's natural sleep and wake up cycles are shaped by their genetics, their brain chemistry, that's melatonin timing, and chronotypes also shift in different stages of your life. So when you're aligned with your own rhythm, energy is stable. But when your internal alignment is disrupted, fatigue becomes chronic and eventually illness sets in. But even if you sleep late and wake up late, you are still in sync with your biological rhythm as long as you're getting enough sleep. And I'm going to address that in a while. That's the quantity of sleep. And your sleep is consistent and continuous, not not broken. When your early sleep is really deep and you have ample sunlight exposure upon waking up. Your biological repair window will also shift as per your internal clock. Biology follows sleep stages, not wall clocks. Repair doesn't run on a clock. It runs on the depth of your sleep, how deep your sleep is. But if you jet lag yourself every day, your nervous system really pays for it. We all know the basics of sleep hygiene, right? Maintaining a structure of going to sleep at the same time and waking up at the same time every day, no gadgets, and etc. etc. I'm not going to get into the obvious, but I do recommend Yoga Nidra, which is a guided state of conscious rest where the body sleeps but the mind stays gently aware, and most times people fall into deep sleep as well. It moves your nervous system into meditation plus sleep combined. Just 20 minutes can equal hours of rest because the brain enters slow wave healing effortlessly. There are lots of videos online on Yoga Nidra which you can refer to. Sleep need is proportional to activity load. Sleep is not just rest, it's recovery, and recovery is proportional to the amount of activity. The more physical activity you have during the day, the more sleep your body actually needs at night. But mental fatigue can be more exhausting than physical fatigue. So for mild mental load, it's 7 to 8 hours. With high mental load, it's 8 to 9 hours. And for chronic mental load, it's 9+ hours. And additionally, downtime during the day as well, because mental fatigue recovers slower than muscle fatigue. So instead of just listening to these generic advices on how much sleep you should get, just let your body decide because it knows best. So the time when you naturally wake up fulfilled, when your body naturally gets up and says, yes, this is it, I'm feeling good, that's how much sleep you've actually needed. Okay, I know you're wondering, what about sleep aids? Hold on. Soon I'm going to address sleep aids that activate your parasympathetic as well. So not just sleep, peaceful deep sleep. But before that, sunlight needs to be addressed because sunlight is foundational to cure fatigue. It's not optional. Sunlight is far more than just vitamin D, which is why many regions of the world are ranked high in mental health issues even after supplementing vitamin D. Sunlight is more of a systemic alignment rather than just one nutrient. Sunlight sets your energy clock back on track. Morning light tells your brain the day has started. Hey, come on, turn the energy systems on. Most importantly, it triggers a healthy cortisol rise. And if this doesn't happen, you feel tired all day long, no matter how much sleep you've had at night. Sunlight stabilizes serotonin and dopamine pathways. Simply put, it steadies your mood and emotions, and you get your drive and motivation and enthusiasm back on track. Sunlight also creates melatonin, your sleep hormone, for a really good night's sleep ahead. And morning light, very important, is greater than the total sunlight. The most important exposure is within the first 30 to 60 minutes of waking because your brain is most sensitive to light at this time. It's called the phase shifting, when it shifts from sleep to awake or alertness. So that morning exposure, even on cloudy days, is more powerful than hours later in the day. Okay, now for the juicy part, the parasympathetic activation. For chronic fatigue due to stress, building parasympathetic time into a busy day is a non-negotiable. And here we'll see a few methods how you can train recovery with the same discipline with which you train intensity or productivity. Think about it. The one thing that brought you to life is breath. The one thing that will take life away is breath. And the one thing that keeps you alive as you're watching this video is breath. And that breath itself will carry you from illness to health as well. You can't calm your body down by convincing it like positive self-talk. You can calm it by showing it that it's safe, secure, by feeling that feeling of, secure and safety and settledness within. Breath is a language with which you communicate with your body and your nervous system. Breath work is one of the most powerful parasympathetic languages because it speaks directly to the vagus nerve, the nerve that shifts your body from stress to relaxation. And I'm going to show you how to give your nervous system very specific instructions and messages to change gears from stress to relaxation. Okay, everything I'm going to show you right now can be done at your desk in an office and takes just about a couple of minutes. And the first one is Rechaka Pradhana Pranayama. This is without the hold. This is an ancient yogic breath work with Short inhales and longer exhales. Inhale means alertness and exhale means release stress. This is the message you're telling your nervous system. Sit on a chair with feet placed parallel on the ground, spine erect and eyes closed. Inhale through the nose for 4 seconds and exhale through the nose or mouth for 6 to 8 seconds. No pauses in between the breath, but you can take pauses from breath to the next breath. The vagus nerve responds more to the length of the exhale. So exhale with a sense of complete surrender. The next one is Brahmari Pranayam, which is a humming deep breath, and it's extremely good for strong vagal tone. It literally feels like a Tibetan gong kind of vibrating within your head. Also because its vibration directly stimulates the vagal branches in the throat, ear, face and increases nitric oxide in nasal passages. It does a lot of resetting of the nervous system, but specifically it increases the heart rate variability. And when heart rate variability goes up, the vagal toning also goes up. This is measurable physiology. So sit in a comfortable position with spine comfortably erect. Place all fingers as shown. And the thumb needs to press down on the ear ridge like this, and then inhale slowly and exhale with a long humming sound made in the throat. Feel the vibration and sound echoing in your entire head. Rounds is good to feel relaxed completely. The next is a physiological sigh is the fastest breathing pattern known to reset the nervous system. Humans and animals actually naturally do this, during stress or when we cry, or babies do it, dogs also do it. So it's like this natural mechanism of the nervous system, but here we're doing it intentionally. Stress traps carbon dioxide in the body, which fuels this panic, and the sigh instantly normalizes the carbon dioxide level, so it's really powerful. It's usually used to relieve instant anxiety in the moment of anxiety. So you can do this by sitting on a chair. Just inhale through the nose and a second top up inhale again at the end, and a long slow sigh out through the mouth. You can do this up to 15 cycles if needed. The next one is a vagus nerve stimulation technique, which is probably everybody's most favorite. Vagus literally means wandering. It's the nerve that is spread in the face, throat, heart, lungs, gut, and a major part of the body. The vagus nerve is the body's main parasympathetic highway, which means by stimulating this nerve, you access the relaxed mode of your body. You can watch this video of mine for all the massage and all the other easy ways to stimulate this nerve, and most of them are doable in an office environment. And you can practice any segment of it in between work hours. There are also a lot of non-invasive digital vagus nerve stimulators in the market today, and they're also called neuromodulation devices. They certainly provide relaxation effects. Here are some popular ones. The next one is a nature walk. 5 to 10 minutes of nature walk without your phone. This is no placebo. It's absolutely measurable physiology. Evolutionarily, nature's green color signals safety, and our body still remembers it till today. Vision is not neutral. It talks directly to your nervous system. Also, trees release these organic compounds called phytocyanides to protect themselves, and when we humans inhale them, cortisol levels drop, blood pressure drops, we calm down instantly. You must have also observed that your thoughts and your head kind of clears out, when you breathe the air near trees, because trees contain negative ions that clear our head, clear the thoughts. You just feel and you can think more clearly. Think of a forest air as a natural nervous system supplement, but one that you breathe in, not swallow. Now let's see some powerful adaptogens for fatigue that you can consume. Ayurveda always deals with the source and not the symptoms. And in the case of fatigue, it does this with gentle adaptogens. An adaptogen is a natural substance that helps the body adapt to stress. Here are some gentle adaptogens that can reverse fatigue slowly and gradually. None of these are going to create any energy. They just remove what's blocking it. Ashwagandha is a very powerful root that has vithanolides that modulate the HPA axis. Remember the HPA axis that I discussed earlier, the system that decides when to release and when to switch off the stress hormones, and when that system kind of gets really messed up, Ashwagandha can reset that entirely, and it's one of the most powerful herbs for balancing the entire nervous system. And Shatavari is really popular here in India with most of the women. It's a powerful root that is rich in steroidal saponins, Shatavarins as they are called, that rebuild women's hormonal health and nourish their reproductive health after prolonged stress. Guduchi is a stem of giloy and it contains stenosporoside and cordifoliosides. Simply put, it supports immunity and metabolism by helping the body deal with inflammation, which really is a natural occurrence when you're in a fatigue state. So it's really kind of good for fatigue, kind of essential, I would say. Amlaki. Amlaki, I can't say enough about this. It's a fantastic berry that's extremely high in stable vitamin C polyphenol complexes that protects mitochondria. Remember the mitochondria we discussed earlier, which are the tiny power plants inside your cells that turn food and oxygen into energy? Amla basically protects those mitochondria from damage, and it's a superfood because of the depth of its nutritional density and multi-system support. So you get your energy completely back with Amla. Brahmi is a leaf that has bacosides that help your brain cells communicate more efficiently with each other and improve the blood flow to your brain. So if you feel this constant thinking and stress kind of fogging up your mind, then Brahmi will certainly help clear that fog. Here are the adaptogens specifically for sleep. Jatamansi is lesser known, but it's really powerful herb, so you need to modulate how much you take of it. It's a powerful Ayurvedic root that is deeply calming and known for restoring the nervous system after prolonged mental exhaustion. It contains natural compounds like sesquiterpenes and jatamanson, which help quiet the overactive brain circuits. So it's like this nervine sedative and mind calming herb, which means it doesn't really knock you out like chemical drugs do, but it reduces the nervous system noise that prevents sleep. So it induces deeper sleep because it's not just your body, your nervous system also rests with jatamansi. The next one is tagara, which is Indian valerian root, and reishi ganoderma mushrooms, which are great for sleep because they kind of calm the nervous and the immune system down and also help parasympathetic activation. So if your mind kind of keeps running even when your body is very tired and exhausted, tagara and reishi kind of helps apply the brakes and induces very deep sleep. Either jatamansi or tagara taken with sleep aids like melatonin, etc., can really induce very deep sleep if there is chronic insomnia as well. Even though all these herbs are very powerful, calming, restoring, and 100% natural, I still highly recommend that you visit a certified Vaidya or an Ayurvedic doctor and get them to prescribe how much and when to take these herbs based on your personal medical history. Just remember that chronic fatigue happens over a period of time, so even its cure will take some time to kind of recorrect biological system patterns. So be patient and don't overdo the medications even if they are herbs. Okay, needless to say, all these remedies work hand in glove with balanced nutritious meals, meaning your nutritional requirements of all vitamins and omegas, proteins, etc. are all met, and you're getting adequate exercise and sunlight exposure every single day. And giving up coffee might be the most sensible decision you make during this fatigued phase. But if you absolutely love the taste of coffee like me, I formulated a 100% non-coffee coffee blend that brews like coffee, it tastes like coffee, and also has the flavor and aroma of coffee and that warm hug in a mug kind of a feeling as well. And it's great as an anti-aging drink, also great for the liver and kidneys. And here is a video if you're interested. I hope this video has helped you in some way. Please do share this with anyone you know who is silently suffering fatigue or any of the symptoms discussed. Until the next time, bye bye.